And we're back.
Yeah, we is.
Back in the hot seat with Life of Caesar, episode 1 of Vespasian.
Yes.
We finally made it.
Yes. We had to kill a guy, but we're here. So I think worth it.
Finally, in the year of the 4 emperors, I don't know when we started this series. It seems like years ago now. But we're finally up to the last of the aforementioned 4 emperors. He finally is now the only man left.
You make a good point. He's the only man left, but technically, the moment that Vitellius' body gets dragged into the Tiber, technically, Vespasian is not yet emperor. There's some work that's got to be done. There's some paperwork. Someone's got to sign some forms. You know how it is in triplicate. But the point is, so one of the main players has been taken off the stage. Would you like to give your opinion? Would you like to sum up Vitellius as a man, as a leader, or does events speak for themselves?
Yeah, look, my take on Vitellius is, as I said, I think in the last episode, he was not the right man for the job. I think even the people that gave him the job quickly realized he wasn't the right man for the job.
We fucked up. Yeah.
Kikina, etc. They were like, it seemed like a good idea at the time, but in retrospect, probably we should have thought a little bit longer than 5 minutes before we picked this guy.
Thank you. We should take more time. Yeah.
But the biggest story here isn't about these guys. It's just about what a clusterfuck Rome is. And this is, I think, just the story of a once great, once powerful society that has just not just fallen into an era of decline, but it's just getting worse and worse and worse. Like if you chart it out,
right?
I've been listening to our original Caesar series on my bike ride, and I was listening again a few days ago on Monday, and we were talking about Clodius.
Oh yeah,
and the whole story of Clodius. But if you go back and look at this with sort of an arc here, we have sort of the whole episodes with Sulla and Marius around, it was about 100 BCE, going through the next couple of decades. We start to see the breakdown of the fabric of the Republic. We see bloodshed in the streets, people enforcing their dictatorships on Rome.
Yeah.
We get down to the first triumvirate and all of the goings on there, and then we have Clodius and more bloodshed in the streets. We have Cicero executing people who he feels are not taking Roman corruption. He's executing people he accuses of being corrupt, executing Roman citizens, which is a no-no. Then we get through to Caesar and Pompey's civil war and the dictatorship, and we get through to Augustus. So from 100 BCE, we're now in 69 CE. So it's been 170 years, roughly, since all of this, since it started to break apart at the seams. It wasn't an overnight thing. This is 4 or 5 generations of violence in the streets of Rome to one degree or another. Even after Augustus stabilized things to a point, we've still got, the era of Tiberius and all of the murdering of his political enemies. And then we've got the Claudius and the Caligula and all of these sorts of years of murder and bloodshed. And it's just been generations of bad shit going on in Rome till you get to the point where a couple of guys decide they can decide who the emperor is. Fuck Galba, fuck Otho. We're going to put Vitellius in the job because they're thinking about their own career paths. And
exactly.
Let's pick a guy that we can control, we can manipulate. We'll put him in the top job. He'll then promote us, and we'll be able to. We'll be running the. We'll be the guys who are pulling the strings of the puppet here. Then they don't like him. And they're like, you know what? Fuck that guy. Let's find another guy. Vespasian. Yeah, all right. Let's get behind him.
Yeah.
It's just messy. This is what happens when civilizations just don't have any sort of governing moral fiber or fabric at the top level of leadership. When, the US has to be my example. It's been falling apart for my entire life in the US. Like Nixon, Johnson, Kennedys. I mean, how far do we go back? The Kennedys were corrupt, brought to power by Daddy Joe Kennedy, involved with the mafia.
Lots of money.
We could probably go back earlier, but
go back.
Go look at the Kennedys. Johnson was corrupt. Johnson was, we've talked about this in the Cold War show and the bullshit filter, I think. But for people who don't know, when LBJ became president, when Kennedy was assassinated, LBJ was involved in a murder trial. There was a guy up on a murder trial that worked for LBJ.
Yeah.
And LBJ was implicated in giving orders to have people whacked. He only survived that because literally the court case was going on the week JFK was assassinated. All of a sudden, LBJ's president, and it's sort of, he's untouchable.
Yeah.
He gets through that. You end up with Ford. You end up with Nixon. Nixon obviously is running creep. He's bugging the Democratic convention. Oh, yeah. He's got guys that are going and breaking into Daniel Ellsberg's psychiatrist's office to be able to get information on Ellsberg's history and therapy so they can sort of denounce and denigrate Ellsberg because he leaked the Pentagon Papers. It's talking about Vietnam.
Right.
You've just got corruption. Then you end up with Reagan and all of the corruption involved in the Reagan regime. You've got Daddy Bush, who used to run the CIA, running things. Then you end up with Clinton, who's getting blowjobs in the Oval Office, and the Democrats justifying that. Oh, it doesn't matter what he does in his personal life. Yeah. You just end up with generation after generation making excuses or justifications for corruption. Eventually, where you get to the point, as you said in the last episode, where people go, oh, let's elect Trump. Who gives a fuck if he's born with a silver spoon in his mouth, wannabe reality TV star who can't speak a coherent sentence because he's fucking high on Adderall. It doesn't matter. Like, it's all fucked.
It's not working.
Who gives a shit anymore? You know, let's burn the whole place down kind of thing.
Right. Well, a slightly different view of everything you just said was one, so when the rule of law, when the respect for the whatever position starts to fade, it's like, fuck it. But here's the truly scary part. This is normally when when you first started talking, I thought you were going to go, if you put out a chart, it gets to Caesar, it gets to, and then boom, it just goes down. When it gets after Augustus, I thought you were going to say the lines like, kind of steady, and then boom, it goes down, because that's how intensely this seems to be happening. But the worst thing that can happen to a government, to a military, to whatever, is when you have some second or third rate guy in charge, and then some emergency comes up, and then you're fucked. With all due respect, this is my personal opinion. COVID. That's exactly what I was going to say. Fucking COVID. When he said, the doctors tell me it's good to go to work. They think it's good for you when you go to work, because he knew what was going to happen to the economy. I will never forget that scene. He's like, no, you should go to work. And then, but of course, the doctors and the scientists and the technicians, the people who have degrees, are able to, in what they said was, kind of record time to come up with the vaccine. Pretty impressive. But the point is, he was the wrong person in the wrong job at the wrong time. So was Vitellius. Just could not cope with what. It's not like he died with a sword in his hand in the streets, cutting his enemies down. He was, whatever. So the point is, I don't know. And the thing is, Rome isn't finished falling yet. We'll see how Vespasian does.
Yeah, and look, Augustus did his best to try and
He did pretty good.
stabilize
Yeah.
things, but he
It's
didn't
still,
build an infrastructure that would survive his passing. He tried, but he failed, and because all of his family kept dying around him, and then he was stuck with Tiberius. And remember, he was like, his last words to Rome were like, "Sorry, I know I'm leaving with this guy."
Yeah. Well, I don't want to ruin anything, but probably in the next episode, which will be the next time we record in a couple of weeks, there's this one Roman senator. He says something along the lines of, you can have all the ideals you want, but at the end of the day, there's some guy sitting in the emperor's chair, and he's either good at his job, not a good person, but he's either good at his job or he's not. And we have to play the cards we're dealt. I'm obviously paraphrasing, and that's the way it is everywhere. If you have an emperor, if you don't have something where you can elect the person, and even then it's shit. If someone takes over by force, you better just hope they're good at running your country, because if not, it's about to get a lot worse. And again, I honestly don't know much about Vespasian. I haven't read detailed into him, so I am truly interested to see what happens, how good of a job he had. Because you can be ambitious all you want, but can you back it up? So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too. Look, Vitellius was obviously pretty lethargic as an emperor. We talked about when Vespasian started to make a claim on things.
Right.
Vitellius didn't jump into action. He just sort of sat in his country estate and ate grapes and had people fan him. He obviously got denounced by the Flavian historians that came after him. Right. They talked a lot of shit about him, denounced his revolt against Galba and Otho, but the two rebellions were very similar. I mean, Vitellius is against Galba and Otho, and Vespasian's against Otho and Vitellius,
right?
Because they all sort of overlapped. They were very similar. They were based on nothing. They weren't based on, none of these guys were in their jobs long enough for anyone to decide that they were incompetent or ineffective. It was just like, well, why should he have that job? What's he done?
Yeah.
Fuck him. Yeah. I think I'll have that job. They were just, they weren't based on any logical reason or merit or lack thereof. It was just ambition. It was just greed. It was just, he's not special. He's not a Caesar. Fuck him. If anyone can have that job now, why not me?
Yeah, exactly.
There wasn't a lot of evidence either that has survived that Vitellius did a bad job running Rome as emperor.
Right.
At least by June, the month that Vespasian decided to rise up against him, he hadn't really done any, they can say, well, Nero did this and whatever, or Caligula did this and they were mad, and they, we also, I think I came to the conclusion during our Caligula and our Nero series that a lot of the shit thrown their way wasn't really fair or justified.
Right.
I don't think they're as bad or as mad as later histories made out. And I think Vitellius was not exactly a go-getter, but he also wasn't particularly horrible. He seems to have been a rich kid with a famous dad, because his dad had been consul a few times, who was given power by Galba, probably shouldn't have been given power, psychologically and emotionally wasn't really up to the job. He was he loved a punt on the horses. He was a gambler. He was a party boy.
Yeah.
He loved throwing big parties. He loved spending money. He had a lot of debts because he'd borrow a lot of money. Right. He was just a rich kid who well, I mean, he's in his 50s when he died, but he was a rich kid who had really no credibility, hadn't been a great general, hadn't been a great anything, had no real political career, just wasn't the right man for the job. Not terrible.
Yeah.
It's not like he completely made all bunch of bad decisions, just really did nothing apart from appoint some of his friends in jobs, which wasn't unusual.
We all do that. Well, it's like if they gave us the position, they made 2 chairs, we sat at them, and we'd look around and we go, would you say generally things are going good? Yeah. Let's just keep doing what we're doing. I mean, how hard can it be? Yeah, you're right. It's not like he raised tariffs to the point where the stock market went down, 6,000 points or whatever. He didn't fuck things up. He just rode the ride, had a good time until the end. And when there was a crisis, like you said, not the man for the job. Not evil, not bad, not horrible. Middle of the road. Let's face it, he could have been a podcaster.
Probably the worst decision he made was accepting the nomination to be emperor in the first place. If he hadn't have done that...
I was good in Germany, right? Things were good. We were happy, right? Fuck.
I remember saying that about Trump after he lost power the first time and he was up on all the legal charges and it looked like he was going to jail, that if he had just not run for office, he would have been fine. He bit off more than he could chew, but then he managed to, come back, and this time he's not taking any prisoners.
Exactly.
He's just
literally
taking a lot of other people prisoner.
Right.
Vitellius just should have stayed out of the whole thing in the first place.
I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what he should have said.
At the time of his death, he was 57 years old. How old are you?
I'm 58. I had to think. I'm 58.
Wow. You survived Vitellius. Congratulations.
Eye of the tiger. I don't know why, but it felt right.
And you've never run for president. That's probably why you've survived longer than Vitellius.
I know where my bread's buttered.
You know where your limits are.
Yeah. Aim low is the secret to happiness. Aim low.
Yeah. And you'll never be disappointed.
Exactly. Where were we?
Now, on the day after the capture of Rome,
right,
Domitian, son of Vespasian,
right,
appears to claim the position of the deputy and the heir. He gets depicted in the Flavian histories as some sort of a hero,
right,
during these days. But really,
I hid heroically.
Yes.
I pulled a Houdini.
As just to remind people, he was kind of arrested with Sabinus.
Right.
When the whole
burning the
resignation of Vitellius didn't take. But he managed to escape.
Right.
So he didn't meet the grisly end that Sabinus did. And when the civil war breaks out, when the troops arrive and there's fighting going on, he probably would have wanted to make his way to the Flavians and go, "Hey, I'm your boss's son. Nice to meet you. Protect me." But he's not stupid. He's not going to go running around Rome while there are people trying to kill him or just general violence. So he was hiding in the house of the sacristan of the great temple.
Okay.
Tell everybody what a sacristan is, Ray.
You're going to make me go back to those years when I was a Catholic. Is that where the lay people keep their stuff? I know it's where the little boys go, but I don't. That's the extent of what I know. What is it in the basement? I have no idea. What is it? I should know this.
Well, the sacristy in a Christian church is like the preparation room. Or the vestry. It's where the vestments, the uniforms are kept and the sacred vessels and all of that kind of stuff. It's where you keep all the sacred stuff that the priests need to, the props. There you go. It's where the props are kept. And the person who looks after the sacristy is the sacristan. And this goes back to, so they had this, in the days of ancient Rome, in their temples, they had the room where people kept the holiest of holies, etc., etc. Okay. Christians obviously borrowed it from the traditions of the pre-existing Roman churches. So this is where he's hiding in the house of the sacristan of the great temple.
Well,
and the great temple got burnt down.
Yeah.
So then he was hiding in the cellar.
Right. Well, a little fact here, Normie. I don't think a lot of people know this. The reason it's called that.
Oh, R.I.P. R.I.P. Norm too.
Yes, Norm. The reason it's called that was because the first person who got the job, his name was Stan, so they called it the sacristan. Whereas if it had been the sacra Ray or the sacra Cam, completely different history. But it's Stan, and they
Barry.
It's,
the sacra Barry it was originally called, and they're like,
but it sings sacristan. It sings, so they just kept it. They just rode with it. Anyway, I most people don't know that. I just wanted to. So it burned down, so he hides in the cellar. But the point is, he's smart enough to not show his pretty face around town.